Good afternoon, Judge May.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, and when you are settled, feel free to get comfortable, and you may begin with your opening statement when you're ready.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Chairperson Roberts, Secretary Law, all the commissioners. Thank you very much for your service. I'm humbled and honored to have this opportunity to be here today. I also want to thank the other applicants who've applied for this position. Our courts cannot remain strong without strong applicants, and I'm very proud to be part of this pool. As you know, my name's David May. I'm a judge with the Iowa Court of Appeals. Today I'd like to do three things. I'd like to just talk a little bit about myself by way of introduction. I'd like to talk about what's really important, and that is what the Supreme Court needs. And then I'd like to talk just briefly about the timing of my application. First of all, about me, I'm 48 years old. I'll be 49 in May. My wife, Paula, and I grew up in Kirksville, Missouri. It's in Adair County, which is sort of the second tier of counties down. Grew up about 40 miles away from the Iowa border. And to borrow a line from Justice Ed Mansfield, we're Iowans by choice. We came here for several reasons. I wanted to go to law school. My wife wanted to pursue a career in accounting. We wanted a good place to raise a family that was still close to our families of origin. We found all those things and more in Iowa. We found community. We live up in Polk City, which is about 5,000 people. We've been there about 16 years now. We've had the joy of raising two teenagers. My son Matt just turned 16 yesterday, and my daughter Gretchen is 19. We found great schools. My kids both went to the North Polk School District, and my daughter's now at Iowa State. Paula found a successful career in accounting and finance, and I had the great fortune to work for two successful law firms. Then I had the great honor of serving on the Iowa District Court for 3 years. And what I found there was great collegiality, great teamwork, a never-ending variety of opportunities for service, presiding over dozens of trials and guilty pleas and sentencing hearings and suppression hearings and just a full panoply of other hearings and proceedings on a wide range of law, criminal and civil and family and domestic abuse and administrative appeals. So it's just a fantastic experience for me. And now, of course, I have the great honor of serving on the Iowa Court of Appeals. And again, we have fantastic colleagues, great judges, great staff, great teamwork. We're, of course, a statewide appeals court, so we get to hear cases from all 99 counties. And again, a fascinating array of legal and factual issues. And I've had the chance to write dozens of opinions and vote on dozens more. So, about the Iowa Supreme Court. It plays a crucial role in our constitutional system. It manages a 1,700 employee court system that serves all Iowans across 99 counties, and its opinions answer some of the most important legal questions of our time. I think I can contribute to the court's work, and I'd like to mention 4 reasons why. First of all, legal writing is and always has been among my favorite professional activities, and the opportunity to wrestle with the hard work of solving novel, difficult questions of law is a prospect that I very much enjoy and something I would very much look forward to. Second, I bring a diversity of experience to the court. I've lived in relatively rural areas. I've lived in relatively urban areas. I worked for a small law firm, Hawkins & Norris, that its primary clients were individuals or small businesses. I've worked for a rather larger law firm, the Bradshaw Law Firm, and it has a wide range of clients. And then I personally have served a wide range of clients. I've worked for farmers and pharmacists and a prisoner and a variety of other individuals and tiny businesses and middle-sized businesses and larger businesses Some of them were successful and some of them were not. But having worked for a wide range of clients helps me to understand a wide range of perspectives, both for litigants and for lawyers. And I think that helps me add fairness and make sure that everyone is treated fairly in the system. And then on top of those experiences as a lawyer, I've also had the honor, again, of being both a district court judge and a court of appeals judge. And if you think about the Supreme Court, they are ultimately the judge of judges through their opinions, through their rules, through budgeting decisions. They ultimately dictate how the district court and the court of appeals operate. And I think that having actually done the job of both a district court judge and a court of appeals judge can only help me in adding to that decision-making process. The third thing I want to mention is the collaborative decision-making process that every appellate court needs to engage in. And certainly the Supreme Court has not only the opinions to work on, but running a branch of government. And again, not every lawyer and not every district judge would enjoy collaborative decision-making, but I've always had great experiences. Both at Hawkins and Norris and at Bradshaw, we form teams of lawyers to bring together the best ideas and the best perspectives to solve the problems of our clients. When I was at Bradshaw, I was a member of a 3-person management team that ran the Bradshaw Law Firm, a business with 80 employees, and we made decisions that impacted the lives of our employees and their families and our clients and the future of the firm. And now, as a Court of Appeals judge, of course, we make collaborative decisions, both in our multi-judge panel. Sometimes it's 3 judges. I've been on a 5-judge panel as well. And then we address administrative issues, often as a court of 9. So I think the last point that I want to make is what attitudes that are best for that sort of collaborative decision-making that you need on the Iowa Supreme Court. And certainly you need independent decision makers. You need each justice to have a viewpoint about a case, be willing to bring it to the table, and be willing to say, no, I think this case should be decided this way rather than that, and help to add to the decision making on every opinion. And sometimes they'll end up 7-0, and sometimes they'll write separately. But you need to have all 7 justices bring their points of view. But likewise, you need to have a court that is, frankly, filled with collegiality. I believe it's the duty of every judge to offer support and comradeship to other judges. We're all part of the same endeavor. And what I've experienced on the Court of Appeals is that collegiality is even more important when you're having to work together to make decisions. And so I think collegiality is something that I can certainly add. And ultimately, if you take independent decision-making and you add collegiality together, what I say is that the Iowa Supreme Court needs a team approach, and that all 7 justices need to be prepared to work as a team to address the needs of the people of Iowa, both in making decisions about opinions and on the administrative side. And they need to continue to be focused on those missions and put aside any personal issues, because there's just simply too much at stake to make it a personal issue. So to me, if you're looking at what the Supreme Court needs, it needs people who love research and writing, have broad diversity of experience, and want to work on a team that's focused on the needs of the people of Iowa. And that's the kind of person I am, and that's why I believe I'm qualified. Now, the last point I'd like to make is the issue of the timing of my application. It's something I've discussed with many of you. I will just say 2 things. Number 1, I remain grateful and frankly overjoyed to have the opportunity to be on the Court of Appeals. Nothing has changed about that. So when this vacancy came about, I did a great deal of consulting with colleagues and frankly a great deal of soul searching about what the right path forward was. And what ultimately I've come to decide and believe is that there's just a lot in life that we're not in control of. And no one in this room and none of the applicants could have timed the circumstances that led to this vacancy. No one could have timed this vacancy. And yet here we are, and there's a vacancy to be filled. And this commission cannot do its duty, and the governor cannot do her duty, and the Iowa Supreme Court cannot reach full strength unless qualified applicants are willing to come forward and accept the responsibility of serving on the Iowa Supreme Court. And as I say, I believe I'm a qualified applicant, and I hope very much that I'll be nominated. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge May. The commission does have some questions today, and so we will begin with Mr. Spies.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Judge.
Afternoon.
Judge, your service on the Court of Appeals obviously gives you a great foundation on which to apply for this position. One area that would be unique to your professional experience would be the role of the court in attorney discipline. And I wanted to know if you have any particular perspectives about your vision of how the court should carry out its responsibilities in conducting lawyer discipline.
Mm-hmm. What I would say is that, first of all, I know we're going to talk about legal issues today, and I think this is about my approach to a legal issue in terms of attorney discipline. And I would start out just by saying that I hope nothing today will be construed as a promise or a pledge of how I'll deal with any particular case, and I'm sure that's understood, but I want to say it out loud anyway, because it would not be appropriate for me to make any pledges that would cause me to not be open to persuasion and serve as an unbiased justice in a case before me. With all that said, I think that Iowa has a long tradition of high standards and ethics for attorneys. I think that is something that our court will continue to have. I think that my particular addition to the process would be based on the experiences that I've had, both in a small firm and a large firm. We all have the same ethical duties to our clients, but I think that each justice brings their background and their understanding of what it takes to serve a client and what it takes to always act in the best interest of a client. And I would just hope to bring my experiences to that process and work with the other justices to make fair and impartial decisions in every case. I hope that answers your question.
Well, let me ask you another, if I can have the indulgence of the panel. Do you think that there are aspects of the practice of law that are being underappreciated by the court?
I guess as I sit here today, I cannot think of any areas of the practice of law that are being underappreciated by the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bloom?
I'll pass, thank you.
Ms. Stanger?
In addition to writing and delving into some of the hardest and most critical issues that might be before our state, the Supreme Court, as you and I have discussed, has an important administrative role as servants to the entire citizens of Iowa, and administratively to ensure that justice and access is available to everyone in the state. I'd like you to comment about your philosophy from a servant leadership perspective, and when you shared with me that once you got the servant bug, you opened your arms to whatever role you could play in that regard, and I think that drove maybe your motivation here today from what I heard from your comments. But specifically, maybe you can talk as to your experience from the district court and how you might enhance the Supreme Court's administration of justice and access throughout the state.
Thank you for the question. I believe that when we look at the court system in Iowa, it's important to recognize that we have a fair number of employees here in the judicial branch building, but in fact, The vast majority of the court's work is done at the district court level in the 99 counties across our state. And I think that personal experience of having been a district judge, having worked with a judicial assistant, having worked with a court reporter, having worked in the situation where there's a court administrator who calls you up and tells you, this is what you're doing today. You thought you were doing this, but there's a guilty plea that needs to be done. I need you to be over here. And you say, yes, I'll be there directly. And that attitude of willingness to do whatever it takes that is necessary for the judiciary, I think that's something that I bring to the table. And I think also that understanding of what all those different jobs really are, whether you're the court reporter, the judicial assistant, or the court administrator, that experience of having been on the district court, I think that can help me to add to the court's work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Horbach?
Yes.
Mr. Goodman?
Judge, thank you for your service and your application. You've served on the district court. Now you're on the Court of Appeals. I think when we spoke, you told me you've issued about 50 opinions. Does that sound about right? 50 opinions and voted on over 100 opinions. I'd like to know, and I'm isolating my question to the Court of Appeals, is there something that you've gained as a perspective or learned from your service on the Court of Appeals that, gosh darn it, you didn't really realize when you're on the district court, or even dated back to the time you were in practice, so I can get a perspective, and maybe my fellow commissioners can too, on what the value of serving on the Court of Appeals might be for an applicant that's applying to serve on the Supreme Court.
Thank you. I think there's a lot that you learn, certainly, by being on the Court of Appeals in terms of that firsthand experience of what it's like to be a collaborative decision maker on cases. Because when you're a district court judge, if there's a motion in front of you, you just type up a ruling and you hit send and off it goes and on to the next issue. But there's always a process that we work through on the Court of Appeals, and sometimes it's straightforward and we all agree, and sometimes it's less so, and we have to go through rounds of discussion to decide, are we all going to be 3-0? Is it going to be a split of 2 or 3 judges? What's the ultimate outcome? So I think those are all very valuable experiences, and to know from a self-knowledge point of view that you enjoy that process, actually having done it, I think that's valuable. But if I were in your shoes and thinking about what my experience might add, I would just bear in mind that, as you all know, the Iowa Court of Appeals decides 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 cases each year. There are maybe 45 each year that go on to further review. And so what that ultimately means is that the Court of Appeals, for 1,000 or more cases, is the final level of review that will, as a practical matter, occur. In fact, I think one commissioner spoke of the secret Supreme Court to me because it's the last word, but people just don't know about it. And just as a practical matter. I have served on that Court of Appeals, as you say, with over 50 opinions written, over 100 votes taken. I have a record from those opinions and from those votes. And if you were to go through that record, you would see a variety of outcomes. If you were just looking at the outcomes, you would see that in some cases, the state prevailed over a criminal defendant. In some cases, a criminal defendant prevailed over the state. Sometimes a father versus a mother would win. Sometimes a mother versus a father. Sometimes a civil plaintiff would be victorious. Sometimes a civil defendant. But the outcomes, the winners, are not ultimately what I would focus on. What I would focus on in reading my opinions is that in each case, I took a hard look at the facts, I took a hard look at the law, and reached a conclusion that was dictated by the law as I saw it, and that as the panel saw it. And that is the process that you want for, frankly, any appellate judge, and that is the method that I would continue with as a Supreme Court Justice.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sinclair?
No questions.
Mr. Bevel?
No question.
Ms. Law?
No questions.
And I apologize, we've come to the end of our time. I wish we had more time to visit, but thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much.